human race, we're living longer. As an American, our retirement age is getting further and further away from us. When I first started working, it was 55. Now they're looking at pushing it to like 72 or something. And you're going to have to work longer in your lifetime. And if you've chose construction to be your median, then you need to make sure that you are able to do things. But even more so, this is how I always looked at it. When you're in construction, you become a mentor to your people.
From humble beginnings, Insurance Claim HQ has grown to one of the largest property casualty firms in the country. We didn't do it alone, and you shouldn't either. Every week, we're talking to claims professionals and top experts from all over, all to help you grow your business and make you stronger. Let's level up together. I'm Galen Hare. Welcome to the Level Up Claims Podcast.
Whether it's installing roofing systems, assessing damage, or taking part in countless other tasks, safety plays a crucial part in the storm restoration industry. Today's episode is all about safety and the part it plays in our industry. I can't think of a better guest to aid in this conversation than the owner of One Life Safety, Kevin Dandridge. Kevin, great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
Oh man, so I have had the privilege of seeing you talk a few times. We have not really spent any significant time together, but I'm super pumped because safety is so important and we're going to do that. But if you don't mind, before we get started, I always like the audience to get to know their guests a little bit. So let's talk about what led you to safety.
So I was in contracting for years. I started out as a framer, worked my way up through companies, started working with general contractors versus the subcontractors. And over time, working for home builders, one of the home builders I worked for at the time came to me and said, "Hey, we need you to take safety classes. We want you to be our instructor. You're real good. You're personable with people. You're from the field. You get the guys out there in the field. You know what it takes to build something, to actually how to build it, not, be just a safety guy that went to school and never built anything. You know how to look at it, how it was built, and then figure out how the safety is going to have to be around that part of the building." And so I took my OSHA 10. The next week I took my OSHA 30. 2 weeks later, I was in my 500 and 502 class. That's where I became an instructor. And to be honest with you, I loved having the information, but being a project manager or superintendent, we used it to make sure that we were staying safe, but we were more focused on the build side. Then the construction industry fell out, 2006 through 2010. Because of the safety, I ended up in New Orleans, working at a ship dismantling company over there in, I can't remember the area, but it was basically when Katrina hit and that barge got loose from one of those scrap yards. That's where I was working. So in the ninth ward.
Yeah, I remember
over
that.
In the ninth ward. So I had the safety and I was working there, and I realized how much I really enjoyed it. Because doing that, we had so many different areas of danger that we were dealing with, working over the water, working over the Mississippi. We were cutting ships apart. So you were, explosives. I mean, we brought in military ships and we would find live ordnance on them. And it just really opened my eyes up to, other than that little residential construction that I was doing when I took my safety courses, it really opened up what safety truly was. And, over time, I've just, developed it and got lucky enough to start the business. And our biggest goal, honestly, is making sure that we get the information out there, that we get people understanding what safety really is, that we're not the redheaded stepchild on a job site trying to stop you from doing your job. We just want you to go home every day with your fingers and toes. And, there's a lot of guys out there that have been doing construction a long time. They've never been through safety. They're just used to doing it their way. And then I've been in the business, I've been in construction and safety a long time, to know these guys that when we were in our 20s, the stuff we did, now that we're in our 50s, has really affected us. Half of us
Yeah.
can't hear. We can't lift our arms up right anymore. Um, and and it made me realize that uh, we've got to get to the people, especially the young people out there, getting them trained and understanding what's out there. Because safety 30 years ago, 20 years ago was completely different. The apparatuses and the gear and everything is more designed to not be such a hindrance. I remember having to wear full face masks on jobs, and it was such a hindrance. You couldn't see out of them. You could hardly breathe. Now it's not like that. Fall protection, same thing. So that's how I got into it. It really was. I was forced into it and found a passion for it, of making sure that we are taking care of not just the guys on the job site too. With a lot of what we do now, working with public adjusters and stuff, it's you got a lot of places that are active hotels, active strip centers, stuff like that, making sure that the patrons that aren't paying attention, they're fighting with their 10-year-old to go into a store, and they're not paying attention. They're walking into a construction site, overhead roofing and stuff like that, and making sure that they're safe. So it's just making sure people are safe.
And it's so much. And, you know, it's kind of one of those. So you talk about the safety, and I think there's kind of two pieces to that, right? The first is the guys that are doing the work. We got to take care of them because exactly what you said. It's a job where you destroy your body, and you don't have to destroy it as much.
Right.
Naturally, you're doing physical labor. You're not going to feel in your 50s the way you felt in your 20s from doing physical labor for, 30, 40 years. But there are things you can do to stay safe and have a longer career. And that's so important. Just if you were like a contractor and you care at all about your people, that is so important. But then the next thing is you can just do it because you care about yourself, right? Which is all the lawsuits. Like the first case I ever got before I ever was in the property casualty space, a guy lost 3 fingers when he was framing a home and the wind blew.
Okay.
And it caused some of the frame to collapse. And it turned out that there were so many OSHA things that were not followed on that job site that we were actually able to make a case that he probably would have kept his fingers had the GC been following appropriate safety guidelines. And it was heartbreaking. That guy's never going to work in the construction field again. You can't really frame with 2 fingers on your right hand.
No, and that is the truth. It's the thing is a human race, we're living longer. As an American, our retirement age is getting further and further away from us. When I first started working, it was 55. Now they're looking at pushing it to like 72 or something. And you're going to have to work longer, in your lifetime. And if you've chose construction to be your median, then you need to make sure that you are able to do things. But even more so, it's when you're in construction. This is how I always looked at it. When you're in construction, you become a mentor to your people. You start out as a framer. The low buck carrying all the 2x4s and everything. Eventually, you work your way up, and then eventually you become a foreman. If you don't share all that information, whether it was how to frame this or how to be safe about this or not pin back your guards on your saws or whatever, then you're just taking a chance of losing parts of your crew, people of your crew, because you didn't train them right. And that is one thing that we stand for here is mentoring. It's why we do so many conferences and so many engagements and stuff as we can. We love being invited to them because it's just getting more and more of the information out there. And when I do conferences, people are like, "Oh, I've seen you speak before." And then I'm looking forward to seeing what you have to say this time. And then I go up and I speak, and they're like, learned even more from me. I didn't know, because it's like I get an hour. So I try to give all the information I can in an hour. But trust me, there's a lot more. And by the next year, new things have happened. OSHA's done things and changed things, and job sites have changed and personnel's changed. So we're getting more information out there. And it's a great thing to be part of. And I like that mentoring part of it.
No, 100%. And you're so good at it, right? Because you can tell you do actually enjoy imparting the knowledge you have. And you're right. I mean, it's very clear from hearing you talk that you I could give you an 8-hour slot somewhere and you would never be able to impart the things that you need to one group of people. But that's why you exist, right? And that's why One Life Safety exists. So talk to me, knowing that the target audience is more like public adjusters, contractors in storm restoration. Talk to me about kind of what One Life Safety does as it relates to those folks.
Okay, so what we do is when we are brought in to help out on a claim, either way, all we do, we really stay in our row. Okay, we don't do engineering or anything like that. We stay with safety. And what we do is we look at the job as a whole. What is the scope? What was what is going to be repaired? Um, and we figure out how to write up a safety protocol that is job site specific, which by law, OSHA law, every job site has to have a safety protocol, whether it's a small 1,200 square foot house roof or a completely new build, 80,000 square foot warehouse. Everyone has to have the specifics in place for that. And that's what we do. We come out, we walk the site, we look at what hazards are naturally going to exist, as well as the hazards that are going to be possibly going to exist. So, like natural existing items would be overhead power lines, sewer lines, vaults, electrical vaults, access areas, heights. How are we going to get to this building? It may be a roofing job, but it may be a 2.5-story warehouse. And how are we getting up there? Because we're not going to be using a ladder, and some businesses, I did one in Nashville just recently, that they have roof access from inside, but it's also a closed industry inside. You can't take pictures. They don't want people that aren't certified to be in those buildings. So we have to build in stair towers outside to actually access the roof. I mean, we look at all of that. And then we also look at, the age of the building. We look at, is there asbestos in here? Is there lead? Is there hazardous materials? That one in Tennessee had, it was basically a machining company, but they do government contracts and they have specific oils and gases and lubricants that have to be used for the type of material they're working on. And, you drop a hot torch on it, or you drop the wrong material on it, and it can ignite. And so that becomes an issue. So how do we avoid doing that, by putting in netting and all that? So that's what we do. We write up the specifics of each individual job to make sure that not only are the people that are doing the work safe, the people that are in that building are safe, that the patrons around that building are safe. Some areas have gone into tornadoes and found hazardous warehouse storage got hit by a tornado. So now we're looking at the people in the whole area. Something goes off, it could run a whole, you could have to evacuate a whole area. With what's going on in California right now, I'm already getting calls with the fires, and
Yeah.
making sure that people are safe going into that, the carcinogens, making sure that the public adjusters and the insurance adjusters are wearing the right masks and have that knowledge, because surprisingly enough, a lot of people don't get trained on, on how to actually deal with what is in a fire. They deal with the structural part and how to put it back together, but what was in that fire? Was asbestos burned and now is attached to all that wood that's still left in there? And they're talking about, dry ice blasting it, which is great, but that's still putting all that, fragmenting it into the air. And now we got to make sure we close off that whole area so we're not getting the neighbor's house and their dog and the pool and everything else covered in it. So there's a lot more to it than just your standard little PPE and some fall protection. And so that's what we do. We come in as experts and look at it. And then as experts, if it goes to that point where we need to go do a deposition or go to a court and defend it, we do that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm glad you brought up the fires because I was thinking about that this morning as I was like driving in. The Palisades are wild because, first of all, the carcinogens, which we can definitely get into, but so many people don't realize how dangerous the stuff that's put out, by a fire actually is.
Hmm.
First of all, you've got the chemicals being used to put out the fire. Anywhere you get that foam, you got problems. And then the carcinogens created through burning and combusting certain materials, just as wild, plus whatever was already in the air and the smoke when it got to the home, right? Um, but also fascinating access issues, right? In the Palisades, some of these roads
Oh yeah.
very, very narrow. Lots of these homes, they like to kind of build it where it feels like it's on a cliff, and so you don't have 360-degree access to the home. Um, you know, the traditional lifts and stuff might not be possible given the unique landscapes of some of those homes. Like, I gotta imagine safety is going to be more important than ever for this fire because of the topography, I would say, of the homes.
It really is. I mean, because you are right. In that area, you have houses that overhang. Access to those houses are not going to be easy. You do have all the carcinogens and everything. You also got to look at, think about this. Every time there's a wildfire in an area, whether it's California, Montana in the mountains or something, once all that area burns, once those rains come, now we got mudslides and we got loose material and all that. So you got to also look at, what could happen if, we've got scaffolding set up and all of a sudden we get 4 days of rain and the earth shifts. So you have, by scaffolding, you have to have somebody every day certified that it's safe, but you're going to have somebody every day certifying that these job sites are staying safe. This house may get started, but these houses left and right, because of insurance or money or whatever, may take another 6 months to start. So, and before they can even start tearing them out. So this one may be a clean access, but we have no access next door, and things start moving, winds start blowing. You got all that. There's so much more involved than just, building something. I tell people all the time, it's so much easier to build a brand new building than it is to do any repair or remodel work, because a brand new building, you start with a clean slate and start going. With remodeling, rebuilding, there's no such thing as a clean slate. And a lot of those houses, they're not all new. A lot of them are real old, and God knows what was in them.
No, I couldn't agree more. So one of the things I think we can transition into, and we'll talk more about how contractors and PAs can use you and your company, but what we see a lot is a public adjuster puts in some safety stuff. They did not write the whole OSHA protocol, partially because they're not necessarily trained in how to do so, but they do put in fall protection. They do put in the obvious things for, the claim. And the response they get back from the insurance companies is one of twofold. Well, contractors don't really do that, or, that's just the cost of doing business. How do you respond to that?
I'll hit the cost of doing business first, because that's an easy answer. You are right. That is a cost of doing business. It costs a lot of money to make sure that the people that are on that job site are safe. By throwing a false number at it, a generic number at it, does not count. PPE is, which is your hard hats, your glasses, your gloves, your mask, all. None of that's reusable. That's all disposable. You might as well just have a trash bag sitting there that you throw that stuff away. Okay. And depending on the job, like California and these fires, a lot of those hard hats and stuff like that, you go from one job to another, they're destroyed. Between the carcinogen, you're replacing those things. So yes, we add that as a cost, and it should be a line item breakout cost. We're going to have this many guys, this many hard hats. Guys go through a set of gloves a week, guaranteed. Guys go through a set of glasses a week, guaranteed. If they're working, they're going through them, and that's a cost of that. So yeah, when you say it's a cost of doing business, it is, but it's not a standard. It's in the bid cost, because it's not. They don't put that in there. Nobody does, and I tell people all the time, if you're just taking even safety, like when we do a protocol, we give a cost sheet to give as a guideline. Don't just take that number and put it in there. You got to make sure you've broke it down for the weeks, how many guys. You got to it's got to be itemized. I'm huge about that, but it is a cost of doing business, and it's part of. It's no different than ordering drywall screws or ordering hanger, Simpson strong ties. It's all part of that cost. The man hours for having a safety manager and a safety director come out and do all that is a cost. The other question, the other one that you said the answer comes from, the guys don't do that. Okay. There are guys out there that do it. There are guys out there that don't do it. But it is, do you go to the drywaller and make sure that he used all 255,000 screws, or did he miss by a case and he shortened up the screw pattern? You don't count that. You don't does the insurance company get up on the roof and make sure that there's 6 nails in each shingle per code because it's a wind area? No. My biggest thing is, and I've actually been on a couple cases this last year where we wrote a full protocol and the contractor posted pictures on his Facebook and online of doing things, and the insurance company's watching, and they pulled it up and said, well, you didn't use this big scissor lift that was in that safety protocol, and I don't see the fall protection that was required on that. And I got asked about that in a deposition, and I said, look, I'm not on that job. I write the protocol. They didn't hire me as the safety director on that job. And they're like, well, we want to get our money back for what we paid. And I'm like, I have nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
I
between you
don't,
and them.
it's between you and them. And the thing is people don't understand is a lot of people, a lot of homeowners or building owners, let me call it building owners, will hire out their own subcontractors. They won't hire a general that hires all their subs. You get a roof put on your house, do you call a general contractor or do you just call a roofer? And when they put the roof on the house, do you stand out there and go, you don't have fall protection, you don't have this, you don't have that? No. But I'll tell you what, guy falls off that roof, you're going to be named in that lawsuit as being the property owner. Mm-hmm. And even to mention on that, there are states, Texas is a state that doesn't require you to have a license to be really anything as a contractor. So how do you enforce that? It's, again, we are putting together a bid, not One Life Safety, the public adjuster. It's putting together a bid to get what needs to be done on this job paid. And if he puts in there that the drywall is going to cost, false number, $20,000 to drywall this building, and then the homeowner or the building owner hires a sub that gets it done for 15, where's that other $5,000 go? Is the insurance company wanting it back, or did the guy save money and found a different contractor and got the same job done? So what's the difference whether they use the equipment or don't use the equipment as a non-paying reason? That's wrong. So basically, you're saying it's okay to break the law because OSHA's a law. It's not a rule. It's a law. So, you know, if you can go to prison for telling somebody to do something wrong and it gets somebody hurt or killed, that's a law. Yeah. So we've been teaching that a long time.
And as a side note for you guys, I mean, you already know Kevin's absolutely correct, but they don't do that argument never goes to litigation because no adjuster wants to get deposed by an attorney, at least that knows what they're doing, because you can very quickly shame them into placing less of a value on a contractor's life than anyone else's. So if you're getting pushback as a public adjuster or contractor, you know, just make sure you've got the right documentation, call Kevin or someone like that, because you will not end up having to get an attorney to litigate over that issue. They will not.
Oh yeah, they'll never, they won't put it in writing, nothing. Cause I've honestly had them say that to me and say, well, put it in writing that you're not going to pay it because of this. And they're like, oh yeah, we're not going to do that. And I'm like, then this conversation's over.
Yeah. It's one of the reasons we don't really use you, because we don't need to, because people often will come to us already with a report from you or something and no one will challenge it. Because it looks so bad, even if they want to challenge it, unless they see something wrong. And I just haven't seen that in any of your work. Unless they see something wrong, they're not going to challenge it, because they might try to challenge it in the pre-suit world, but they don't want to get deposed. Well, why do you think that roofer's life is worth less than yours? You wouldn't do this, would you? You wouldn't do this job without these protections. They're like, no. Okay, well, why does who's actually going to do this work deserve less protection, less safety, less quality of life than you do? And whoa, I didn't say that, you know, and it's over. It's over before it started.
Yeah, conversation's over.
Yeah, they can't do it. So, and you know, what's kind of interesting here is some insurance carriers actually require that like businesses themselves have their own safety plans for when, not after a loss, but just when they're doing work, right?
Mm-hmm. So I find it interesting. You talking about that, and I'm going to kind of side note. I'm going to squirrel off here a little bit. I've always found it interesting that the insurance companies that are fighting to pay safety on a claim are the same insurance companies that cover construction companies for workman's comp and require that they have a safety guide and they have a safety director and a safety plan and a safety manual, and that they have an EMOD rate that is below 1.0 or they're going to raise their rates. They're the same company that will beat the hell out of any company out there that manufactures anything, does construction, anything like that, but then we'll turn around and go, yeah, we don't owe for that. We're not paying for that. That's a cost of doing business. Well,
Yeah.
it is a cost of doing business. You're making me do this. So the funny story is how I got here. Okay, with One Life Safety, I got hired by a construction company, a design build firm. They got hit with EPA and OSHA fines in California, and part of the settlement with the EPA was that they had to hire a national safety director that had all these requirements, right? And I came up on the list because I had all of these requirements. I got tons of certifications, all this stuff. I came up on the list, and they hired me. And in that time, they owned a disaster company. That went out and did disaster work, right? And that's how I did know a lot of public adjusters and such. But and one of the arguments we had was with, and I'm not going to say the insurance company because I don't like calling people out, but the insurance company that we were arguing with on this massive loss in downtown Dallas was like, well, what makes you think you have the right to tell us what is going to have to be done? What we're going to pay on safety and what we're going to have to do to, pay for all this and pay off for all that, for all this safety equipment. What gives you the right? And I said, you do. And I said, what do you mean? I'm like, you're our insurance company and you required that company hire me to keep our guys safe. And now I'm keeping the guys safe. So you're the one that's making me write this. And they're like, oh, so that was how much money? And I'm like, this amount. And they're like, okay, well, we're done arguing about that. I'm like, because it's your own damn fault. So
Yeah, I mean, look, I think both sides could do better, but just a little consistency would be nice. Just
consistency would be great.
have left hand
I
and
get
right
asked
hand
in
do the
every
same thing.
Yeah, I get asked in every deposition, do you work with insurance companies? I'm like, I haven't. I'm not against it, but they don't ever call me and ask me my opinion. I don't know why. I've had insurance companies after depositions go, we should probably use you to start reviewing some of these cases, these public adjusters that send stuff in. And is this really needed? I'm like, send them over. I'm more than happy to do it. Because my biggest thing is if you take care of your client and you do everything right when it comes to doing the right scope and the right safety and everything like that, the money's going to be there. And all you've done is done the right thing. I want to make sure, like I said, you go home with your fingers and toes. I want to make sure people can pick up their grandkids, even when they're 20 and they're working to getting to the grandkid part of their life. I still want them to be able to do that. That's my biggest thing. I'm not here to make anybody a boatload of money either way, save money, take money, whatever. I'm here to make sure people go home. And when you do it right, the funds are there. The money's right. The people are right. And that's all that I want.
This is why you were one of the good ones, sir. We're almost out of time, so before I let you go, because I feel like there's no better place to end than that. Why don't you tell us what it means to you to level up?
Really, to level up. To level up to me is mentoring, is doing the right thing. There are so many people out there, and I'm not talking just in our industry, in any industry, that are doing what they do for the wrong reasons, and they're not taking care of the people that have hired them to do whatever they're doing. And to level up is to take that next step, to mentor, educate, keep people safe, keep people healthy, and keep people full. If you are full financially and you're not full mentally or emotionally, you're not full. And that's what it means to me to level up. Like I was saying, if you take care of your client and do it right, the money's there, and they're full, they're happy. You should be full for taking care of them. When you can walk away from somebody knowing that they are better for meeting you, that's leveling up to me.
I love it. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
I'd like to thank Kevin Dandridge for joining us on the show. Now, we've talked about purpose-driven companies before, but never with someone in the industry. Can you think of a better example in the storm restoration industry than One Life Safety? Kevin really cares about making sure that you're safe, making sure that you're healthy, and making sure that you can live a long life. So if you're a public adjuster, make sure your estimates reflect appropriate safety protocols. And if you're a contractor, do them. Keep the people around you safe. Follow us on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast player.